also had a lot of heart and a lot of hard work. And these 65 young people are to be commended for the way in which they handled this. We have really enjoyed it. Right now, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Major Scott Ballou.
So yes, I am still hungry. It's a little joke that we were having over here in the corner. I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here tonight. Originally, the Chief Deputy for Seminole County, Dennis Lehman, was scheduled to be the speaker, but he had a family event that came up unexpectedly, so he had to be away. I apologize for my voice, but last week I spent most of the week in bed with a little bit of sinus infection, so if it cracks a little bit, I apologize. On behalf of Sheriff Esslinger and all the men and women of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, we want to congratulate these young people for their accomplishments. I also want to again reiterate that I certainly appreciate the privilege of being here and being able to speak on behalf of our agency and on behalf of all the men and women who have put this academy together. You've spent over 100 hours over the last couple of weeks doing some fairly intense training. I understand when Senior Advisor Beetham said that there had been some tears, the majority of those were his. Occasionally they were mine when they would pick up the phone and call me. But I understand, because I've been involved with our Explorer Post for a number of years, and I'm going to share a little bit about that in a few minutes. But I've taught at the Seminole State Law Enforcement Academy. I stopped teaching back in August, but prior to that, almost 20 years teaching in the Basic Law Enforcement Academy and advanced investigative classes. And I know what I've done, excuse me, to the recruits who've come through the police academy. And I know that almost all of the men and women who taught you this week were part of one of those classes. So if they did anything that hurt your feelings, if they did anything that hurt your bodies, it was probably some form of retribution to me. So I apologize for that. I want to start off by acknowledging and thanking all the law enforcement agencies who made this possible. The first thing that I feel like I am compelled to do is acknowledge the beginnings of the the Explorer Academy. This started as an initiative with the Sanford Police Department 13 years ago and was picked up by the Winter Springs Police Department under the direction of Chief Kevin Burnell, who, by the way, himself was once an explorer. Started the academy a number of years ago. Through their vision and commitment has grown to what we're celebrating tonight. As well, this past academy, this current class that we're celebrating, our key partners in success for that were the Orlando Police Department, Sanford Police Department, the Altamont Springs Police Department. Chief McCoy is present this evening on the front row, and we're grateful for their partnership, and without them, the academy could not nearly have been as successful. There's a couple reasons why what you've accomplished this week are important. You are 65 individuals from, if my memory serves, 10 different law enforcement organizations representing 5 different counties in Central Florida. You've had an opportunity over the course of the last couple of weeks to probably get to know people who you never met before, to have an opportunity to work and train with and run scenarios and just spend time with people who you've never met. Now, I recognize that not all of you are probably going to seek a career in law enforcement, but a number of you are. And so those relationships that you've made over the course of this training, and if you're in phase 3, then it's probably last year and the year before, all of those relationships are the beginnings of a professional network. As you each go through the rest of your education, your military careers, your academy experiences, and finally end up working for one of the agencies in Central Florida, want to stay in touch with each other. Because our greatest tool in fighting crime, our greatest tool in improving quality of life issues, is our ability to collaborate and our ability to communicate with each other. The communication that you guys see in those small training scenarios, you know you're more successful when you communicate with each other than if not. It reaches far beyond that once you become a law enforcement professional. If we're not sharing with the people who we work with, if we're not sharing with the people in the other agencies that are our partners in this effort to reduce crime, then we will be less successful. So please take from this that down the road, it would be important for you to remember all of these connections in that network and for you to continue that good communication and collaboration. Personally, I wanted to share with you that I have been part of our Explorer program for almost the entire 31 years that I've worked at the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. Back in 1984, when I started at the Sheriff's Office, it took very little time for me to become familiar with and initiated, I suppose, with our post 517. By 1985, when I was out on my own and I was patrolling, I had already established that I wanted to participate with that program. I was able to actively identify some of our explorers for ride-alongs. And those ride-alongs were, and the relationships that I built with those young men and women, were part big brother and part mentor. You know, it was as important for me for them to be successful as I think it was for them. It was important for me to share the things that I was learning with them, because most of them had a strong desire to get into this profession, and the majority of them actually did end up in this profession. Over the course of 5 or so years in the late 80s and early 90s, I was our post senior advisor. And it was the time when I was the senior advisor of our post that I had an opportunity to see firsthand what you guys are about. It was during that time that I became aware of the fact that you guys commit hours and hours and countless hours that goes generally unrecognized of community service. Not to mention the things that you do for your agency in the way of service, working details, parking cars, being at events, all of the things that our explorers do, I know are done at posts throughout the state and throughout Central Florida. And it was just eye-opening for me to see that there were this group of teenagers and young adults who were so committed to the idea that one day they were going to be law enforcement professionals, that they were eager to give their free time. I was not that teenager. I was definitely not that teenager. Probably should have been that teenager, but I wasn't. And it was just inspiring to me to see the commitment that these young people had for their posts, you know, for each other, for the agencies that they represent, and just for the community that they serve. It was something that has just stuck with me. From 2002 until today, I have had the opportunity in my various administrative roles to oversee all of the divisions, the departments, the sections that directly impact our Explorer post. I've stayed in touch with the program as much as I possibly can. The last 2 years, much more previous to that. But I gotta tell you, nothing's changed. I am still actually probably more inspired by you guys. I am more impressed by how amazing our young people are. The things that they willingly do. I have never once picked up the phone and asked our Explorer Post to do something that not only didn't get done, but got done exceptionally well. And while we see a lot of stuff in the news, and there's a lot of things that are reported about young people in our society today, a lot of the things that these young people are doing goes unnoticed, unrecognized, and certainly unreported. But I want you to know that I see it, all of us see it, all of your advisors see it, and we are forever grateful for the things that you guys provide for us. always, hopefully, I know I can speak for myself, and I think I can speak for the rest of us, always be here to be a resource for you, no matter what profession you choose. When I first agreed to do this, actually I didn't agree, I was ordered, but when I first received that order to be here, Mr. Beetham told me that I had to speak for an hour. And I told him that I had about 45 minutes in me, but that I could probably stretch it out for an hour. So I had to think about what was I going to talk to you guys about for an hour, and I decided that I'm just not going to. But before I leave the podium, I do have a few other things to say. As you progress, hopefully you're being exposed to it now, but as you progress, and regardless again of what your chosen profession ends up being, leadership is going to be a huge part of your development. I think that you're being exposed to some leadership philosophies now in your individual posts through this academy, hopefully in your school environments, and if you seek higher education, you will be exposed to some of that in that higher education component. But leadership is something that I don't want to say that we lack, because I don't think we do, but leadership is something that makes each one of our agencies stronger. You know, at the end of the day,